Hello, and welcome to the Be Formless, Flow-Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. And today I have another fellow Aussie on the show, Paul Coldrey, close by in Adelaide. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, thank you. You know, I went to say Radelaide. I don't know why. It's Bris Vegas, it's Radelaide, Melbourne's Mexicans.
Yeah, well, I actually grew up in Melbourne, and I know that there's an interesting backwards rivalry, right, where Adelaide really seems to care about being better than Melbourne, but I'd never realised, and not sure Melbourne cares too much about Adelaide, but we're quite happy with the Radelaide term over here.
Yeah, okay. I'm feeling very competitive today, actually, because my team is playing the Crows tonight, which is I should say firstly, hello to all the listeners out there. Big hi and hello. Shout out to everyone all around the world. Please don't forget to share, like, comment. Your interest in the podcast are not going away. It's really interesting, all the different conversations. So a big shout out to everyone. And for those of you that don't know, I am a massive Australian Football Rules League supporter, and I back for Collingwood. And Paul, tonight we're playing the Crows.
I know. I'm actually going to be there. So there you go.
Are you Adelaide?
Well, I'm an Essendon person. My brother-in-law's an Adelaide fan, and he's going to be a bit loud he has family tickets, but didn't want to go with his wife and daughter because he's going to be obnoxious. So hence he invited me and my dad. So we're having a boys' day. Good
on you. Oh God, I'm a bit too scared to go and see Collingwood in Adelaide at Adelaide Oval. It's just like I've stayed at that Oval Hotel there, but I've never. Yeah. Anyway,
the Crows fans aren't too bad.
Yeah, I'll be watching it tonight. Anywho, let's get on into it, Paul, because I have been looking forward to this conversation with you, and I think it'll be profound because you were just commenting on even just some of the themes that have been coming out of the podcast lately, and you're absolutely right. You're so on point in terms of it's really interesting times, isn't it? In terms of there's this desire to try and keep up with what everyone else is doing. And especially now with AI completely and utterly in everything we're doing. And yet we forget quite often that what if we just took a step back and thought about, well, what works for me versus what's working for everybody else? You are the founder and director of Data Effects and Lumient, and you combine software engineering with entrepreneurship to develop technologies that solve complex challenges across biosecurity, agriculture, and environmental management. And your work and your team's work has helped governments, researchers, and industry harness data to make faster, smarter decisions with real-world impact. Keen to talk to you about the data piece, actually. An important inflection point emerged as, Paul, you built and scaled multiple technology businesses. You realized that innovation isn't simply about creating more technology. It's actually about solving meaningful problems whilst building a business that enhances your life rather than consuming it. So nice to hear that. So refreshing. I want to clap you for that because I was talking about...
You wrote that beautiful thing, not me, so you should clap yourself.
You're not meant to tell people that. I'm just like, this is just me doing my research and homework on you. And that's what you did talk about when you responded to the question that I asked you. Today, Paul, you and your team, you're leading your team developing intelligent biosecurity and environmental technologies that help protect Australia's industries and ecosystems while continuing to build businesses grounded in simplicity, purpose, and long-term thinking. And ultimately, at the heart and soul of your work is a belief that the best technology serves people, the strongest businesses create freedom rather than burnout, and lasting success is measured by the life you build along the way. You're also the father of 3. Is it 3 children? Did I get that
3,
right?
yes.
Yes, 2 younger ones and then an older one.
That's right. One that's flown the coop.
Yeah, that would
keep 2 little ones that are very much in the coop.
Tell us, like serial entrepreneur, you've seen it all, you've done it all. Tell us a little bit about, I think, most importantly, this whole point around life and not letting business run your life.
Yeah, well, I started off, I was employed by a big company for a couple of years, and for various reasons, I thought I'd go out on my own, and I did. And, you go through an interesting journey scaling a business, and I think it's really interesting looking at what other people have learned along the way, because obviously a lot of people have done this before, and it's a lot easier to learn from other people's mistakes rather than making them all yourself. And so I went through the process of scaling businesses and trying to make them bigger and better, which was good in a way, but I found the stress tends to go up with the size of the business, and sometimes the profitability and the amount of time you have to yourself and all the rest of your life tends to suffer a bit. And so I guess where I've ended up after a while is sort of having more of a niche business where rather than trying to get big, we focus on having a good area we work in and a sort of strategy around how we develop things that allows us to be quite profitable, but also really good value within the market. And so, that's sort of my latest thing is trying to work on the strategy to have products that people want that they're happy to pay for, and you can have a life and quite a profitable business as well.
Yeah, rather than just chasing the hustle and all the stress that goes with it. I think that's I think a lot of people are questioning that at the moment, aren't they? Like, what is this all about? What is this, what does this mean? Especially, I think, I don't know, the younger generations seem to already have kind of that perspective. Not all of the younger generation. I think us, I look at you and I, and we've always been, I guess, conditioned to go to school, go to uni, or not go to uni, do a trade or get a job straight away. And then it's just work. And I was saying this to someone the other week. I was reflecting. I was walking around on a Friday afternoon. I was thinking, here we are again. It's the weekend. We work
No, the
all
weeks
week.
do swing by, don't they? It's amazing how quickly you end up going from week to week to week.
Yeah, and I was saying that to somebody else today, and it's kind of like, and then you look around, and I think the older you get, you kind of go, what is all this building towards? Like, what is this,
Yeah, my business partner was actually working for a large research organisation, and he'd hop off the bus and walk the last little bit into his office, and he found himself walking past the bins that went out every week. And that was his reminder that another week had gone by. So that was, that the bins out on the street that he walked past, he just started to think about how many weeks were ticking by and how little sort of fulfillment he was getting out of what he was doing. And so it was the weekly bin cycle that made him think about what he should be doing with his life. And he thought, oh no, I'm going to do something different and go out on my own. And yes, and we end up forming a business together.
Yeah.
But I thought they captured it well because, there are these things where your life just ticks by, and unless you make some conscious decisions, you can kind of tick along and be comfortable where you are. I think that's certainly part of my personality. There are some people that are really driven to do stuff and are always agitating and always looking for the next thing. And that can be good because you become a high achiever, but it's also stressful and you may not ever enjoy where you are because you're looking at the next thing. I probably have the opposite personality where I'm pretty chilled out whatever I'm doing. And the flip side of that is that it tends to make you less aspirational and you can just kind of chill out and have your life go by that way instead. So it's finding the balance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, the word balance always gets me because it's kind of like it's one or the other. And I always think about it as like a flow, like an integration of like life, work flow, etc. It's interesting you talk about that because, ambition versus complacency is the wrong word, but being happy with where you're at and almost like this is good for me, right? There's an interesting dance that happens there if you ask me. And when you have your own business, there's pros and cons to it. And you brought it up pre-show, and I briefly mentioned at the start of this show around comparison and this need to look outside and look at what everyone else is doing. Like, have you ever had that yourself in terms of you've chosen a path and it's a profitable business, you have a life, and obviously got the young family and the older, got two parts going on. Like, have you ever had moments of where it's just like,
well, I mean, the business I'm currently running is going very well, so that obviously makes you a lot more positive about life. I used to have like Lumient, which is a business that's sort of now been consumed by Data Effects. That was a bespoke software development company. And when the economy is going well, that can be really good and a pretty easy business to run. As things get quieter, it can be pretty tough. And there are times where it grew to a reasonable size, and then there was economically poor times and a whole bunch of our clients went broke, and that ruins your cash flow. And, so there's that whole thing. And there are times there where you think, oh, gee, maybe it would have been better to just go and get a job and work for someone else. But I think, there is that same trade-off where the flexibility and the ability to plan your own path and be a master of your destiny is really nice. And the trade-off is that you have sort of more risk and and you've got to decide what you like in terms of sort of risk reward world, because it's, in some ways, it's a lot more comfortable just working for someone else, and you go home and turn your brain off, and your time's your time. Whereas when you're running a business, as you've probably found, there is an art form to not letting the business encroach on every part of your life, because you can always be thinking about what you could be doing for the business.
How have you done that, Paul? Like, in terms of how have you built your life around, your business around your life, in terms of life comes first? Like, for me, it's taken me many, many years, and I won't lie, I'm a type A personality. I have the addiction when it comes to work, and I can still to this day have moments where I've just pushed myself too far, and then I get sick or something happens. How have you enabled business to fit into your life?
I guess one of the things we've done in Data Effects is we have a nice sort of niche in the business we're in, and there is a limit to the competitors we have, and we've got a reasonable barrier to entry, which makes it a nice business to have. And we've grown to a size where we can afford to be a little selective about the projects we do. So we pitch for projects, and if we win them, then they will be good for us, and we're pretty comfortable. So unlike the world where you sort of have to take on projects that you don't want, that will bring you stress and are hard and may or may not end up being profitable because you need to keep the lights on, we've sort of created a style of business where we can be a little more choosy about what we do, which then means that the whole sort of cash side of the business tends to be less stressful. I mean, it can always go wrong. We are relying winning projects, and if we don't win a project for a fairly long while, then we'll get really stressed. But so far we've been able to land projects at least as quickly as we want them. And so I think that really helps. When your business is financially sound, it takes away that stress of what do we do to pay the people, because I don't know how many people you've ever employed, but it's really disappointing if your business starts to do less well and you're forced to sack people. That's a really unpleasant part of life, right?
And that over the years, definitely.
And that really does chew at your mind, or chews at my mind, about when and how is the right time to pull the pin when cash flow is not so good. So we've sort of dealt with that quite well through the whole sort of strategy of the business and the whole way the business is structured. So that takes one thing away. But I kind of got to the point where I don't really check my emails out of hours or on the weekend. And so, I've just got in the habit of not being available, which is quite a journey. And some people go, oh, in fact, I was speaking at a conference the other day, and the people who were running the conference sent me a message at 6:00 on a Friday night. And I was speaking on the Tuesday, and about 8:30 on the Monday morning, they sent me another email going, oh, you haven't sent us your slides yet. And I'm like, well, I was working business hours. And
it's 6 p.m. on Friday night.
Oh, yeah, it's like, well, maybe you should ask me a little earlier.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's something also for me about if you receive an email over the weekend and I choose not to respond unless it's absolutely required, there's just this like politeness, like, how was your weekend? Like, or if people don't ask me how my weekend's going, I'll write back and say, I'm having a great weekend. My weekend's really nice, thank you. How's yours going? Like, as if to say, what? Like,
well, we better not send too many emails. I think I drift to a certain end of the personality spectrum, right? And when we communicate in the office, we communicate in facts, the whole sort of touchy-feely side of things. There are different personalities. And I tend to write emails and then pause and go, actually, I probably should add some, human introduction to this thing to be a bit, because, I guess you end up focused on just what you need to achieve. And I think that's a bit of an engineering scientist kind of thing. But I'm well aware that there are people in the world who really like the flowery bits at the start and the end. So I have to stop and pause and add them in.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's not even flowery. I think it's just politeness, just to say, how are you? Like, or hope you're well. You know what I mean? Like,
but particularly if there's people you haven't spoken to for a little while, I think, there's sort of two types of communication. There's that rapid exchange stuff where you can just cut to the chase with people you talk to a lot. And then there's the other ones where I think it's appropriate to have a little more
Banter.
humanness to them.
Absolutely. And so tell me a little bit about, like, you said it was a bit of a journey to be able to switch off the way you have been able to. Did you have coaching or anyone help you, or did you just make a conscious decision that, you know what, like, I've got a young family, or like, I just need to be able to give my brain a break? Because in terms of what you do, it obviously requires a lot of strategic, a lot of thinking, a lot of brain, a lot of cognitive labor. And so, for me, when my brain's hitting the like wall sort of thing, I can't think straight. And then I'm at my worst when I operate like that. So what was it that...
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think some of it just came down to a conscious decision, and I think some of it was also around social media and all these other things that just take your time. And I realised that wasn't really healthy or worthwhile to be involved in social media. And so I kind of cut out social media. And it was a bit of a similar thing that it's like, well, that was taking time away from doing things that are worthwhile in life. And it was also, I think social media now seems to be designed to make you stressed. And so it was making me stressed. And part of that whole decision, I think also, I thought, well, it's no point being involved in work stuff, and there's a limit to what you can really achieve. I think you are more productive if you set aside the time to focus on your work when you're at work. And so sometimes I'll go into the office earlier and come home a little later to deal with peaks and troughs of what I need to do. But that is sort of the way to then try and not be too involved out of hours. Having said that, I do have a few businessy discussions with my business partner out of hours, but they're a bit of a different thing. Sometimes we call each other up because, your brain's off at the end of the day and I've just had this idea about whatever. And so I do a bit of that, but I ignore emails and messages almost entirely out of hours.
And do you turn them off? Do you actually physically have the notifications off?
No, I'm just good at ignoring them.
God, what an arse.
And my business partner finds it really funny because he does send me messages and he assumes I've read them. And one of these days we'll figure out that I don't tend to read them. I mean, sometimes I do. If I get a quiet moment, there's absolutely nothing going on, I might just check what's been happening, but I certainly don't let it drive my life at all. My phone's pinging away with emails all the time and I just ignore it.
Yes, it makes it for a really interesting point right around being present, and your work will always be there. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, that work will always be there. And I know that work will always be there, and quite often this urgency that comes up, and especially as a founder, co-founder, if you like, and that ability to be able to switch off, because what might be urgent today, and if you actually just sit on it and put it to the side, or park it if you like, by the time you get to the next day, it's generally solved. And I'll find that with clients even. Sometimes I'll be like, I'm not even gonna respond to this, because by the next day they've come back to me with, actually, I've thought about it. And it's not to do with like our relationship, it's to do with an issue they're having. And then they'll come back at me and go, oh, actually, no, I've thought about it, and it's actually da, 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 da. And so I think sometimes the ability just to sit with it, or put it to the side so that you can then look at it with a fresh perspective is so much better, and brings it right back to your point around growth, profitability, and also giving you the lifestyle that you...
Yeah, I had a really interesting one a whole bunch of years ago when I was a sole trader. And so if I wasn't working, nothing was happening. And I had a client that had a big release of something that was really important to them. And I was working pretty hard, but I was unwell. I'd got tonsillitis and there were other things going on in my life that were pretty complex. And so I wasn't getting better. I was on antibiotics, but I was working away. And then I became really unwell and I was in hospital because I had an abscess in my tonsil. And so, that then becomes life-threatening. All these things that seem so important, right? Because I was working for this guy and it was part of his business and whatever else. And, I called him up and he's like, oh, that sucks. Well, make sure you get better and, don't feel free not to talk to me for a few weeks. And when you're feeling okay, we'll talk again. And so this thing that was sort of dominating my life and was part of what was driving me into the ground and ended up with me unwell. I mean, it wasn't a big part of it, but it was part of the stress and part of why I wasn't lying in bed recovering. And when it all fell apart, nothing changed. It wasn't like no one's life was actually any different because I'd failed. And it's like, well, maybe there's a lesson in that, there's always there'll always be something to get stressed about if you want to get stressed about it. And so you got to choose what's worth.
What's important and what's not
Yeah.
important.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about some of the, I guess, in terms of profitability and growth and this whole, what's your view on, I mean, obviously there's a view, like in terms of what are you seeing in some of the businesses you're working with then? Like, do you, when you partner with them and you choose, is it based off of values? Like, there's still a lot of businesses out there that is profit first, whatever it takes, we'll do it this way or not. You've obviously got a very conscious business and sounds like you've got a very conscious co-founder. And I believe that profitability comes with a highly engaged, healthy business, healthy team, healthy founders. When that bit's not healthy, you notice that profitability doesn't necessarily, like, what's your view on that? And then what do you see that in the businesses that you're working with?
I ran another business in the past that was in sort of time and attendance, facilities management stuff. And it's interesting, before I started that business, a mate of mine and said, oh, be careful choosing your founders because it's a lot like a marriage, you make all the same decisions. And that wasn't, I still have a lot of time for that guy, but in hindsight, it wasn't a good person to end up in business with. And I really he brought a very different perspective to what I brought, but we had extremely different sort of risk profile. And so in the end, we parted ways and it was amicable and whatever else. But I think it is really important, that whole having a sort of common objective. And one of the things that Andrew and I do when projects come along, we look at how it fits in with a strategy, because you can't be too clear on what problem you're trying to solve, or you sort of limit yourself. And so we go through this sort of process of pretty expansive, if it's something we like, because we like doing things that we have fun with, that we see some value in. And obviously a lot of the things we're doing are to do with food security and in maintaining biodiversity and stopping invasive pests coming to Australia. So it's things you can feel good about. And we have this kind of expansive view of how it might fit in with our agenda and the other things we generate, because part of how we end up being good value is you sort of build up rudiments from projects that you can bring together for the next project. Yeah. So you've already got a bunch of IP and tools that you can bring in that mean that you can be very cost competitive but also very profitable. And so we go through this process of being really liberal in how we can tie it into what we do. And then having done that, we kind of pare it back to see whether it's actually logical to tie it in with what we do and how it might flow on to what we do next. And so we've got a reasonably sort of clear strategy idea of where we're heading, but it's a little bit fluid. So as projects come along, we are happy to let them guide our future strategy.
Yeah, I love that. And you've kind of tapped into this solving meaningful problems. Like, you wouldn't see from the daily that emerging complexity. It's not just rising, it's emerging constantly, especially in like environmental agriculture, technology, everything that's coming at us at like a rate of knots. It's hard at times, or hard's the wrong word. I think about problem solving like it's solution finding, right? And solution finding is when you're looking for the meaning behind how you're going to solve the problem versus just, oh, here's the problem. Oh, this is the way we're going to solve it. A lot of businesses like want things at pace. And so when you're solving meaningful problems, they also take time. Do you think that's becoming more and more of a challenge, or do you think there's more of an opportunity in the space you're in, or like in general?
That's one of the really nice things, I think, in the space we're in, that the problems are big and the industries are huge. So I don't know what our grains bring into the economy, but I think horticulture is about $18 billion a year in Australia. So, and that's one of the smaller agricultural things. So I don't know what the grains input is, but these are big businesses. And so small things you might be able to improve can have enormous benefit, and therefore they have significant value. But there's also the whole sort of sustainability side to this, because one of the things we do is try and produce information that helps people make better decisions around when they might spray or when they might be able to miss a spray because there's no disease pressure for whatever they're spraying for. And just the cost of creating these chemicals, moving all the chemicals around and spraying them, and then whatever that might do to the environment having sprayed them is huge. And so making little tweaks to how people run agricultural businesses can be enormous in its
Yeah.
impact.
I was thinking about this the other day. I was a completely different topic, if you like. I also am a quotes person, from little things, big things grow. And it's what you're talking about here, like from a problem, for example, like it might be a small problem that you're solving. However, the solve you're creating has potential to be huge. And I think even when it comes to right back to profitability and right back to growth, I think it's interesting at the moment also in that space around, I don't want to focus on the little things because the little things aren't going to give me that quick, fast cash injection or whatever, or dopamine hit, if you like, and so it's really interesting you bring that up because I do think we need to get back to basics a little bit around, well, how are we solving this problem and how are we getting back to what is actually tangibly here we need to do?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we do perhaps a little differently is, I mean, it's not that novel, but we're very focused on, in the industry we're in, there are a lot of people who create a product and then try and sell it. And we are more working with researchers. So we find problems that we might be able to create a technology to solve. And so it's driven by the problem first. And then we sort of work backwards towards whether it's something we can solve and whether we have any tools to solve it that we can then extend, which is a bit of a different way of looking at things. But it also leads to the relaxation side that we have and the profitability and just having a business that runs well, because there's nothing more stressful than investing a whole bunch of money in a technology that then turns out to not be that good, but it is the technology you have to sell to run your business, and you end up in a storytelling exercise to try and justify your existence, whereas we don't have any of that. If we end up with a product that is a good product to sell at the end of some of our research stuff, we will know because the product was developed around solving a problem, and we would only ever start marketing as a product if and when we're really clear that it solves that problem well. So it's just a bit of a different way of looking at products. So we have some things in our kit bag that might become products reasonably soon, but we're almost a little reticent to become a product company because it's sort of more fun and easy to be where the products are a tool that help you engage with people and solve their problems. And then as soon as you're actually selling the products, there's sort of maintenance and all the bits and pieces that are less fun.
Paul, you seem like you've got it all so well put together. Like you've got
it's a facade.
That's what I was going to ask you. I know it's not a facade. Like, what do you do on the real shitty days, or what do you do on the days where you're just like nothing is working? Like the research isn't happening. We're not solving the problem. You got stuff happening at home. You got the two young ones, with a cold. Or the oldest one is telling you that he or she's going off to do something that's completely against what you had thought they were going to do. Like, how do you keep this calmness and this presence about you?
My wife would probably tell you I don't always keep the presence about me. I mean, it's an interesting question. I think it's good to have a business partner you trust, because on your bad days, you can probably just step back and do nothing, and the world continues. Maybe if you have a bad week or a bad 2 weeks, then that's still true. I'm pretty lucky, maybe it's luck or maybe there are a few other things involved, but most of our staff have kind of been with us forever. Many of them have. Well, I had a software business that's kind of evolved into this biosecurity business, and a lot of our staff have been with us 10 years. And so everyone knows what's going on. And I think that really helps, because everybody has a different way of communicating, but you learn how you need to communicate with people, and you learn who you can just give a job to and know that if you're hearing nothing, it's all good, and who you need to sort of keep poking. And so I think there's a certain amount of that once you've built a team around you, you become less important. And about I actually did a course which was called the Transformative Leadership Program. It was out of Adelaide Uni, and it was quite life-changing for me, not as anything to do with business. It kind of, and I guess one of the things that becomes obvious is how you run your business is really closely related to how you run your life. And how
Yes.
you are in business is really, and maybe if they are the same person, that makes your life simpler. And I'm a bit of an open book, so I'm the same person everywhere I go. And I found that just really interesting in understanding what's important to me and how and why you make certain decisions and how you sort of get trapped into thought processes. And I think out of that, they said you'll come out of it. Talked about the whole hero's journey, and they said, you'll come out of a slightly bigger version of the person you came in. And I think that was a pretty fair assessment of my experience. I just felt not a whole lot different, but just a little bit more capable and resilient, and had a better understanding of myself at the end of it.
Well, I think it's just connecting on from the inside out, right? Like just that knowing who you are and what fulfills you and what actually makes you tick. And then if you can lead and do business and live from the inside out versus the outside in, I think it makes for a much better life in general. And, it's taken me a long time to get there in terms of doing all the inner work that you need to do at times to actually go, what do I truly want from the inside? And I think that comes back to team as well, right? Like I've got 2 final questions for you. You've had a team for over 10 years and team is everything. There's obviously now these agents that are coming into the team as well. So we've got these hybrid teams happening, and it's causing a lot of unrest, upheaval in terms of role security, etc. What do you see is what makes your team tick? Like what is it that keeps the magic there?
Interesting question. I mean, I think given that a lot of what we do is software engineering or software and engineering, we all come from a certain one end of the personality spectrum. And so I think what makes us happy and content is, I think that takes away some of the sort of political tension that can happen around offices, because none of us are particularly political or sensitive people, right? So it's the wins and losses thing, right? Where being these simple and unemotional beings that we might be at times at our end of at the end of the personality spectrum that software people and engineers tend to be, does actually make for some harmony in an office. So I think that's one part of it, but I don't know. I think part of it's about just making people feel important or respected, or I'm not actually sure what the right word is, but you want your people to feel like they're part of something bigger and achieving something. It's a bit like why I do what I do and probably why you do what you do. You want them to feel like they're part of something a little bigger and more important than just sitting there.
Yeah. I think the other things that come up for me is familiarity, like a shared clear goal, like calling out, no ego is involved in terms of transparent, open and honest communication, feedback loops. I think they're all really important parts of how to have a really strong team that lasts a distance, long-term team, so that, exactly like you and your co-founder, there's moments when one person in the team might not be at their best. So how does everyone play their role like a jazz band? It's like everyone has a role to play. And so how do we leverage all the different personalities, even though you might come from the same sort of arena of engineers, if you like? I think that's always been something that I've always looked for. And also when it comes to problem solving is putting the different team members against the different problems in a way that looks at the problem differently, I think, is because you want your team to be engaged and motivated. And I've always been very much of the opinion that I'll expose the team as much as I possibly can to the business so that they feel like they are part of owning the business as well. Like it's part of who they are, and also bring your Saturday self to work, I always say.
You're making me think that I don't really do much teamy stuff. But then I think about it. We're not a big place for closing our office doors. It's pretty unusual that anyone close the door. If you're in a meeting, you'll close your door so that people know you're not, that you're in a meeting. But for the most part, our doors are open and people wander and chat. And I guess another thing that I've always liked, which we do in the office, is everyone comes and sits and eats lunch together. I feel like that is
Yeah,
just a small
nice.
thing
Yeah,
that
agree.
builds community. And
Agree.
so we're
Connection.
not really a big teamy sort of place, but I think there are just those little things that we do that help it. We used to play a lot of table tennis. Unfortunately, our table tennis table's in the corner because we've been building a whole bunch of stuff and that room got taken over, but we need to get it back.
I love that. Yeah, no, there's nothing like a bit of competitive energy in the team as well, and just like smashing something around. We've always had foosball or, ping pong or whatever.
And you see some funny personalities come out on a table tennis
Oh my
table.
gosh, yeah.
People show a different kind of themselves on the.
I know. Paul, if you could, to wrap up our conversation, which has been super fruitful, thank you, just right back to your response to my question around finding the flow between growth, profitability, and lifestyle, as in not letting your business run your life. If you could give one tip to any of the founders out there right now that is listening to this conversation thinking, I need a bit of Paul. I need a bit of what Paul's magic, what Paul's doing. What would be your tip in terms of starting with switching off from the day and not feeling guilty about the fact you haven't checked your emails, you haven't checked your WhatsApp, your iMessage. Like there's so many different forms of communication at the moment. What would be your tip?
I don't know if you've ever run into the balcony and dance floor thing where, they talk about when you're dancing on the dance floor, you're just thinking about what's going on in front of you and your partner and not running into the person next to you. But if you go and wander up the stairs onto the balcony and you look down, you get this entirely different perspective of what's going on, right? Which is a really lame analogy for the whole concept of being drawn into operational things versus taking that moment to step back and be strategic. And I think I certainly fell into this in the past where you're just sort of caught up in the day-to-day stuff and you get drawn into that without ever stopping to think, are we doing this the right way? And I think one of the things that's really changed since I've had Andrew as a business partner is we do take quite a lot of time to just stop and think about whether we're doing things the right way, whether we could do them better for a certain project that might be not traveling as well as we want, how we might reimagine what we do there to get it back on track. And even though it seems like you're wasting time from one perspective, I think that time is so unbelievably valuable to keep you, when you are doing the operational stuff, keep you pointing in the right direction.
I love that. I've never heard the balcony and dance floor.
Oh, you should look at it. I don't know who.
I'm going to.
It's a famous one from some famous person in some famous book, but I don't know who it was.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. Paul, thank you so much. How do we find out more about you? How do we find out more about Data Effect?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I mean, we don't do a lot of social media stuff. We're actually redoing our website at the moment. We post a bit of what we're doing on LinkedIn, but we've been pretty relaxed about how we market ourselves. Some of the things we do in environmental DNA are becoming a bit more internationally relevant and known about. So we're actually in the process of becoming a little more clear about what we do out in business, because before that, business kind of came to us because the market we're in, people know us.
Yeah.
So we're pretty quiet at the moment, but we're about to have a whole new brand story. We might have to talk about the new brand story.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk. I love it. I love a good brand story, and I think your personal brand you've got a lot to share, Paul, and I think that I'm looking forward to seeing it all come to life. Thank you so much for your conversation. It's been
thank
really
you for having me on.
And I really appreciated all your words of wisdom. And I think just for everyone, just a final reminder that from someone who let life fit into my business for many, many years, Paul is just a testament to that you can actually do it. I am still on the journey of doing it. I think though that at the end of the day, like we have to cherish the present moment. That's all that's in front of us, right? And it's a good reminder for me. So Paul, absolutely loved this conversation, and the profitability or the abundance and the growth comes if we're able to be more present and more in the moments versus chasing what's in front of us or what happened yesterday. It's here. It's now. So great conversation, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Evening, and go Pies. I hope you're going for Collingwood tonight.
No, Khan the Crows. Although I do like Steele Sidebottom. He's one of my favourite players, but he plays the wrong team.
He's going to retire.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, thank you, Paul. I'll talk to you shortly. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Belinda.
Bye.
See ya.